It is day 92 of Russia's war in Ukraine, and the country's military, Ukraine's military, says Russia shelled dozens of towns today in the Donbas region. The fighting in eastern Ukraine intensifying further, and a regional governor has confirmed 3 additional towns in Donetsk are now under Russian control. This is new drone footage from one of those fights. You can see abandoned positions on the front line where Ukrainian forces fought until just a few days ago. This town is about 80 kilometers from Severodonetsk, where Russian forces have focused many of their recent attacks. And Salimah Shivji continues to track developments for this today. She's in London watching what is going on in the Donbas region. Salimah, what is the latest today?
Well, Heather, as you know, we've been speaking about the fighting intensifying in the Donbass over the last few days and the week or two. It's being described as extremely difficult, the situation in the Donbass, basically very tense, hell. That's a description from Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky. Basically, this is the main focus of Russian forces who really want to wrestle control of the entire Donbass region from Ukrainian hands. So that means the Donetsk province as well as the Luhansk region. There's a long list of cities that are in the sights of Russian troops, and there are several parts in the eastern Donbass where Russian troops far outnumber Ukrainian ones. There are attempts to organize some sort of prisoner swap with Moscow that Kyiv is working on. So far, those attempts have been unsuccessful. You mentioned Severodonetsk. Now, that is key. It is very strategic. It is the easternmost city in Luhansk that is still in Ukrainian hands, and it's been surrounded on 3 sides. The shelling there is relentless, 24 hours a day, according to local officials, with Russian soldiers really trying to cut the city off, to choke it off and cut off supply lines. Here's how Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba described the situation in the Donbass.
I'm afraid that no one in the world has a clear picture of what is happening there. Some villages and towns, they do not exist anymore. They were all turned into rubbles by Russian artillery fire, by Russian multiple launch rockets systems, and it's devastating.
Now, he says the main disadvantage for the Ukrainian side is that Russia has a stockpile of weapons, and that far outnumbers what Ukraine has and what Ukraine badly needs. So there is, again, as we keep hearing, a plea from the Ukrainian side. Basically, they need more weapons and advanced weapons, and most particularly MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems. That is absolutely what Kuleba says that Ukraine needs. He says the need is urgent to allow Ukrainian forces to keep some of that narrow territory in the Donbass still in Ukrainian hands.
Something else I'm interested in this morning, Salimah, Russia has raised the possibility of opening a safe corridor for foreign ships to get out of Ukrainian ports. This gets to the issue of food supply. What is the latest on that?
Yes, it's an offer, but there are strings attached. As you mentioned, food supply is a huge issue. There are some 22 million tons of grain just sitting in silos across Ukraine, unable to leave Ukrainian ports because of the war, because of the blockade in the Black Sea. The UN and many other agencies are saying this is urgent. Time is running out. The longer the grain sits there, the more the threat of a global food crisis and the possibility of severe shortages and famine in countries that are deeply dependent on this Ukrainian grain, that just gets closer and closer the longer this goes on. Western leaders have rejected the possibility of using any sort of naval convoy to get the grain out without approval from Moscow. Now, Russia is saying it could be open to opening a humanitarian corridor and getting that grain out, but if crippling sanctions on its country, some of those crippling sanctions are eased. Now, Ukraine's foreign minister rejected that outright, basically calling it blackmail.
Salimah, thank you very much. Salimah Shivji from London.